In today's video, we're going to make the following 3D model: a propane gas tank in Blender. This ought to be a good one, but before we get started, let's look at this quick ad, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Let's go ahead and dive in it. First, let's clear our scene here. And what I want to do is turn screencast on for you. And I'm going to bring in a circle primitive. I'm going to set my vertices at 16, which is a good little number to start off with. I'm going to go into edit mode and I'm going to scale it down. This is going to be the top portion of the tank, and we're going to build it from the top down to the bottom. So let me get my viewport right so you can see. Now I'm going to start extruding and scaling, just like we've done with so many other videos. And we're going to bring it down some more, scale it out. And what you'll see is I'm creating the primitive shape of that propane tank. Yet again, extruding down and scaling it out. So what I'm slowly doing is, if you look at each little section there, I'm creating the curvature of the top portion of the tank. Then I'll bring it down straight in the middle where it's more flat. And now there in the middle where that little ring is, I'm making that little ring. Now it's going to look a little bit bigger to the eye because when we apply sub D to it, sub D is going to suck it in a little bit because its natural tendency is to curve down everything. I probably could have made it smaller, but it'll still look right. Good news is it's vertices and faces, so we can always scale it later if we need to. And yet again, I'm coming back down here at the bottom, and I'm going to start modeling out the curvature of the bottom of the tank. Just taking my time with it. One reason why I'm going a little bit slower with this, even though this is an extremely easy model, is that I want you guys to kind of see what I'm doing, and hopefully I can explain why I'm doing it to see if it makes sense to you as you're modeling your version of this. One thing that's always helpful before you start modeling anything is to have plenty of reference photos. You don't see them, but I do have another screen that's offline, off the view of this, with some reference photos of a propane tank. So I'm kind of eyeballing over at my reference off screen and looking at the photos at different angles of the real thing, and then coming back here on the screen where I'm recording and modeling it for you. So just because you don't see reference doesn't mean that I'm not using it. I am using it. All right, so I almost got the bottom finish here. So what we want to do here is pop in a grid fill. You don't have to do the offset. It just looks nicer to line it up, but you don't have to. As long as there's quads there, you're good. Now I'm putting in some support loops here, just kind of help relax the geometry. You're going to see I'm going to come back in here later and do it to other areas, but right now I want to tighten up some edges with bevels for sub D, because I'm going to run a higher sub D on this, probably a level 3. So it's putting in some support loops for relaxed geometry. I'm adding more geometry in here, but not going crazy, because sub D is going to make it crazy for us. It's going to make it more dense. And I want to go ahead and tighten up these little sections right here where this little bevel piece is. I want that to be a little bit more pronounced when we run sub D. Okay. Now I'm hitting shift in to recalculate my normals because I started with a circle and I started extruding in one direction. A lot of times in Blender, depending on what direction you go in, your normals can be backwards. So you have to recalculate normals to fix it. I went ahead and just did it ahead of time and showed you that the normals were correct. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to look down here at the bottom. There's usually like a little hole cut out at the bottom of these tanks. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of mimic my own version of it. So I'm going to select these 4 faces. I'm going to inset them. Well, first of all, I'm going to select them on the back side because I want this to go all the way through. I'm going to inset them. Doesn't have to be a massive hole, just small enough hole. And then because I got the same selection on both sides, now I'm going to hit X and delete the faces. And now we've got a gap here where we cut between that geometry. So what I've got to do now is fill that. And the way I want to do is I want to bridge edge loops. So I'm going to select a loop on each side and hit bridge edge loops. And that fills it in for us. Just like that. And the reason why I'm doing it one at a time is just to show you guys exactly what I'm doing to get that feature to work. I'm using keyboard shortcuts a lot. So I'm hitting Control E on a Mac. It'd be Control E on PC as well. And there you go. Now what I can do is, because all this is geometry, I can come in now and continue with my beveling just to tighten some things up, because we are going to run sub D on this model. And that looks pretty good. All right, one note about the top here. The version in this video, when I recorded it, I had already taken a shot at the top, but pay no attention to this because I had a lot of shading issues in it, and I figured out a different way I wanted to tackle it. So you'll see a different version of this later, and you'll see how I do it. Right now, I'm moving on to the nozzle that comes out of the top of the tank that plugs into your gas line and your hose. So I'm modeling that. Just bring this up. Yet again, I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing extruding and scaling. Scaling or sizing or whatever you want to call it. Same thing, but that's essentially the majority, like by 80%, 85 to 90% of what I'm doing is that for this particular model. And then I'm running bevels after the fact to kind of tighten up areas that I don't want sub D to have that much of effect on. And the amount of bevel that I'm applying constricts the amount of sub D that it will be applied to a particular edge or a particular face or whatever, really a particular edge. And that's why I'm doing that. Yeah, it's looking good. And you're going to see, I'm going to come back on this model, the tank itself, and I'm going to redo some things because you see a lot of shading issues up there. But we can deal with it later. We don't need to deal with it at this second. And just like I have these issues, it's possible that you'll have these issues when you try to model this as well. So like I said in many of my other videos, I want to show you guys when I screw up, or if I figure out a different way of doing something, because it's very common. So what I'm doing here is selecting some faces here, and I'm going to use loop tools that we've discussed in other videos and shown in other videos. And I'm going to generate a circle from this. And notice I have flatten selected. It's just going to give me that shape I want. And I'm not worried about it so much here because this section right here is going to be hidden. And I know it's probably, you could probably say it's a little bit of cheating, and it is. So I'm not going to get bent out of shape over that one little section there. And then I'm just going to pull this out just a little bit, and then from there I'm going to extrude and scale and make the joint that comes out of that metal bigger. And that's going to allow me to scale it up to make it look like a propane hose or fitting would fit on that. And yet again, I'm back at the same process again, extruding and scaling. Now, you're not going to do that for every single model you make, but anything like this is cylindrical or cubic or these basic primitive shapes, or based heavily off these basic primitive shapes. A lot of times this is a technique you're going to use to model something. Might be some nuances in it, but this is mainly what you're going to do. And yet again, I'm beveling to tighten up sub D. Right here and on that outer selection there. But before I do that, I want to come in here and put some threads. I like to use machine tools. It saves me a lot of headache. Threads are easy to do manually, but it's just more time consuming. And this plugin just does it for me, and I can just keep moving. So here's that outer edge I was talking about. We're going to run a bevel on it. Notice I'm making this bevel a little bit fatter because I want sub D to tighten this up, but I don't want it as tight. I don't want like a razor sharp edge here. And I'm just coming here and I'm selecting these edges that kind of were part of the extruding and sizing piece, where we take one shape and then we bring it out and make it a little bit bigger, and then we extrude from that. These little stepwise pieces, I'm taking those and tightening those up, so when we run that sub D on them, we don't lose the shape. We don't have a big giant blob of stuff there. Whereas if I didn't do that, sub D would just run amok, and everything would look, and you've heard this in other videos, everything would look blah. It'd just be a big blob of stuff, and it wouldn't retain the shape that you're after. And what I'm doing now is just quick tweaking, quick housekeeping work. It's a bit necessary to get the shape that you're after the first time. Just take your time and put a little bit of work into this, and then when you run sub D, you don't get anything crazy. So I'm just putting support loops in here to kind of reinforce my shape and relax the geometry so I don't have super long faces, which causes issues. Especially if you've got something that's trying to bend and you don't have enough geometry, you'll start getting weird shading issues. Now watch. We save the file. Let me do some more support loops up here. And I'm going to run a level 3 and a shade smooth. And bam, look how clean that is. See, by doing that extra work, your bevels and everything, and make sure everything's good, when you run sub D the first time, you'll nail it. So one thing I did not show is I did not show you guys how I pulled up that little back piece. Basically what I did was I created a bevel. I scaled a bevel out, which basically made two edges right there, two separate edges in a ring. I selected the ones I wanted and I literally extruded them up. That's all I did. And then I did edge creasing, edge mean crease on the sides of it. You can see in red here in the back of the screen where everything needs to tighten up a little bit. So it's non-destructive. It was super easy. So what I'm doing now is that little piece that comes from the tank up into the fitting, I'm kind of remodeling that because that was kind of funky before. I ended up just taking all those verts and I basically chopped that whole little section of the tank off and just started modeling it again. I just did it offline so the video wouldn't be another 15 minutes longer, or however long it was it took me to do it. So yet again, I'm just tightening stuff up with bevels. Right now I'm running an edge crease and I got like 42%. Now I'm putting support loops in for the same reasons as before. And just kind of taking a look at it, and that crease down there looks a little tight to me. So I want to relax it a lot, so I'm going to bring it down. I'm going to bring it down quite a bit. That's a little bit better. I can live with it. Alright. Now what I want to do is I want to go up here to my fitting. I want to find that center vertex at the top. I want to move my 3D cursor on top of it, work on top ortho view, and I'm going to create the little gas knob. It's a knob that you turn left and right, turn the gas on, turn the gas off. And the quickest way, or the best way I know how to do this to get that shape right, is just bring in a single vertex. I keep wanting to say single vertices, but that's plural. I want to bring in a single vertex, and from there I'm going to extrude and just basically outline the shape that I want. And then I'll figure out topology after I do it. So essentially what I want to do is I want to make half of it because it's symmetric. So I'm going to grab that vert. I'm going to move it over on X a little bit. Just kind of try to line it up with that other one. But because it's not perfect, I'm going to scale them on X and set it to 0. That perfectly lines them up. And then from here, I'm going to take the bottom vert. I'm going to extrude it up towards the top vert. Going to stop it. And I'm going to select them both, and I'm going to merge by distance, but I'm going to do it merged by the last one, which would be the vertices at the very top. Now I can hit F to fill it, and now from here I just join my vertices and play with my topology. This is going to be quick and dirty. And then once I got that set up, then I want to make sure that the origin of this geometry is right there where my 3D cursor is. So I'm moving it over a little bit, and then I'm going to right click, go to set origin to 3D cursor, because this is going to be the pivot point in which I run a mirror modifier. Bam, like that. So that just makes it super easy to do it. And I'm okay with it, so I'm going to apply the mirror modifier. Now what I want to do is go into edit mode, select everything, and extrude it up on Z. And I'm just kind of eyeballing how thick that knob should be. I extrude it up again, and this part right here, I'm just going to chamfer it off at the top. Bring it down a little bit, because I don't want it too thick, because then it'll look crazy up there. The good news is if it does, it does. We can scale it down, not a big deal. So all right, so what I'm doing now is I'm grabbing this little piece here, because what I'm trying to get is a square. So I'm gonna grab this edge here, and what I want to do is I want to scale this on X, set it to 0. You see the black is overlapping geo. I just bring it over and it fixes it. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. You'll see what I'm doing here in a second. So I'm gonna grab those edges, these edges, and I'm going to scale those down on Y. Bring them in closer because I'm trying to get more of a smaller square shape. And I've got 2 edges in the center. I'm going to get those centered up and do scale lils on Y as well. And now what it allows me to do is do an inset. and then I can run loop tube circle, and then that can be my little nut or screw at the very top of this shape. And from here, what we want to do is go ahead and we want to scale it down so we don't have overlapping geometry. So in other words, I don't want those verts overlapping because we get weirdness. I'm going to inset it. That kind of creates a barrier around it, like a protective fence, if you will. If we start doing funky stuff with geometry, extrude it down, inset it again, and then I want to bring it up because it's going to make it look like a little screw. And then I want to extrude it again and then scale that inward. And that's going to give it a nice little round-esque kind of topping on it. So when we run sub D, it's going to look like a little screw there. I mean, we're not going to have a screw head in it, but it'll look like a screw. See? Imagine sub D on that. See, now nice, perfectly round. However, my issue is when you look at it from top ortho, it's not centered where the fitting is. But I'm going to show you how to fix that without having to model it again. So what I'm doing now is I'm coming here on these edges, and then I'm going to run mean crease on it just to tighten them up a little bit so it doesn't look, so the knob doesn't look so rounded off on the edges. I didn't want to put a bevel there because bevel, you kind of committing to that, but something like this I could run a edge crease and we should be good to go. And that'll allow us to like change the value there, the percentage of the crease. If we change our mind later, I don't have to go in and dissolve those edges and redo it. You can, it's just time consuming. Okay. So you'll get to see this happen kind of in real time. So I'm going to slowly bring in increase that edge crease. And that's about what I want. Something like that. Is it perfect? No, but I don't care. I mean, it's a little knob. You're not going to notice it. And I'm not doing high detail modeling here either. Most of my videos on here, I'm not doing high detail models like I would do for a company. I'm just trying to get your feet wet. And I'm trying to do it in a way where I'm not teaching you bad habits. So I'll grab all of these faces in here. And then I select these faces here I don't want. I just wanted that little square and the circle in there. And now I can hit G and Y and bring it down and center it up with the fitting or the round pieces back there behind it. And then that way I don't have to remodel all that. See, it's just easy. You're just moving geometry around. Save my file out. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And now what I want to do is I want to parent all these things together. So I'm going to parent the knob to the fitting, parent the fitting to the tank, and then everybody's glued together. You move one, they all go together. Now I still got to tackle this little back raise piece, which is like the handle for the tank. So what I decided to do was use a boolean. So I made a cylinder, ran level 3 on the cylinder, added in some extra loop cuts, did the same with a cube, elongated the cube, ran level 3, bunch of loop cuts to match my geometry. So I counted the number of lines going across it to match it up with the density that I had for the level 3 of that little handle piece back there. And it made very nice and clean boolean cuts. And now I'm applying everything just so it locks in the geometry. And in that way, as I'm moving stuff around and looking at it at the view and screwing with it, Blender is not having to recalculate everything every time. All right, so now we're done with the model, and now I'm moving on to applying materials. This part is pretty easy too. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna grab the fitting, and I'm just gonna make a quick, like, low budget brass material for it. I'm keeping it extremely basic. So I'm messing with the color wheel here, getting over into the reds, and now I need to move over into the yellows. Between the reds and the yellows, around orange, but a little bit more yellow. And then I need to lower the saturation and maybe play with the brightness a little bit, or lightness. And just to get that hue right and get that tone right. And then I'm gonna crank the metallic value up to 100%, make it fully metallic. And then it's a matter of me playing with the roughness. There's just too much red. The further left you go, the more into pure red it goes. There you go. That looks about right. And there's a little piece that you see under there between the fitting and the handle. I ended up making offline. All it is a cylinder. And I made it look like you screwed a handle because I wanted to separate the handle from that top. Literally is all I did. So if you guys notice that in the video, don't freak out and say, oh my gosh, he made something he didn't show us. It's literally a cylinder I stuck in there. Okay, so now I'm going to make a material for the tank. I'm going to make it metallic. But what you'll see is I end up having an idea later to do something like way different. Looks more like real tanks that you see where the latex paint's kind of chipping off and stuff. Has that weathered look. I'm not going to show you how to make the material, but you'll see it applied. Maybe I'll do a video for something like that at another time. I was gonna roll with this light gray, like a white light gray material for the tank, but I was like, that looks just too boring. Even though this is what most of those tanks look like in real life, it just looks too boring. So that's why I had the idea. But you'll see it here in a minute. You'll just see me apply it, and then we'll go from there. So what I'm doing now is I'm making a material for that handle or that knob, something kind of silver, metallic. I chose a blue the first time. Just I wanted to give it a little pop of color. So that's what it looks like at the moment, but it's not gonna stay that way because I don't usually see tanks that color for propane. Maybe what is it called, R32, the gas for your AC unit. I think those are in blue ones, but the propane I can't recall ever seeing one in a blue, straight up blue tank like that. Anyway, that aside, I'm making a backdrop, so I bring in a plane. I'm extruding two sides of it because that's the only portion of it the camera is going to hit, right? So now I'm going to come in here. I'm going to grab those three edges. I'm going to bevel them. And for whatever reason, my blender's really laggy like past few days. So if you see in look dev mode, it's like kind of jerky. Yeah, it's just funky acting. Maybe I need to reboot my machine or something. But anyway, that aside. I've shaded and smooth, and I'm going to create a material for this backdrop. And really all I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the default color there, and I'm just going to bring down the lightness. Yeah, look dev's been real glitchy, and it's not add-ons because I disabled a lot of them. But I am running an alpha, so that's probably the problem. Stuff's not optimized yet. This is Blender 4.5.0 alpha, which as of today of recording of this video is now in beta. So I may do the next video in it, because if it crashes, hey, we'll just all see it together. But anyway, I'm bringing in the camera, changing the focal length to 80 millimeters. I like to use 80 millimeters a lot because of portrait photography. I used to do portrait photography and sports photography back in my past life. And I'm just kind of setting up a shot here where I'm just wanting to mainly showcase the top portion of that tank. I'm not really trying to show the whole thing in this shot. And I want to bring in an empty because what I want to do is I want to do depth of field for the camera because I just think that looks so cool in Blender. Kind of mimic a bokeh effect that you get with certain lenses and shooting at that focal length. And I'm going to take my focus object is an empty. The reason why I like to use an empty instead of an object is because with an empty I can move it around the thing and change the depth of focus. And even if you're doing an animation, I can keyframe the empty and move it around, animate it, which you don't see it on the screen, and it changes the depth of focus for a particular object. So I can go for a foreground object to a background object and vice versa very easily. That's why I do it that way. So I'm bringing in an area light. I'm gonna drop it right over the top, and then I'm gonna move it a little bit to the rear and angle it. Not that this is a lighting tutorial, it's really a modeling tutorial. I'm just kind of showing you guys a little bit of extra me lighting a scene and doing some stuff that I usually don't show. We'll scale that light up just a little bit, but if you notice, I'm getting a lot of pop off of that handle, off that knob. Bring it up a little bit just to diffuse that light out quite a bit. I want to angle it so all the light's not beaming right down on that top of that tank. And keep in mind that this light is spreading out like 180 degrees, so it's shooting out a straight line like across it, right? So shooting out just flat all the way across it. I could condense that by dropping the spread degrees amount down, but that intensifies the light, so it's going from like a widespread light almost to like a spotlight eventually. And I just don't want to do that because it's just going to blow everything out, because we got a lot of metallic stuff going on. Now usually if I'm lighting metallic stuff, I'm usually putting a light on the left side of it, and then I'm usually taking a plane, setting the roughness all the way up and using it to diffuse the light back off of it. Or I'll take my aerial light and I'll take a plane, put it in front of that, and put a translucency node in there and make a diffuser, make like a diffuser in Blender, which actually does really well. However, Blender, I think I have a plugin that does this, an add-on does this, but I think Blender in the newer versions now support feathering of lights natively. I could be wrong, don't quote me on that, but I'm almost certain I saw that somewhere. But anyway, I know I'm rambling a little bit, but here's after the composition of the scene. I put a new material on there of weathered paint on top of the metal. And we're going to do a test render here. Oh yeah, that was looking pretty good, guys. We're done. So let's see what the final version looks like. After finishing and rendering this out, I rendered this out in 4K. This is the final version of what our model looks like. And like I said, if you were able to follow along, congratulations, you've done it again. You guys are awesome. If you like my content, like and subscribe for more. There'll be more videos coming, and like I've promised you, I'll start running them out in rapid succession here pretty soon. I'm gonna try to do 2 or 3 a week, but we'll see how it goes with my schedule. Thank you for joining this video. Thanks for watching, and have a good one. Talk to you soon. Bye.